I'm just about to start cutting these for the third time. If you've seen the previous films, you'd have seen me. I've used this. I think it's about 40 grit. I've been over the shoe again with, I think that's 120 grit, and this is about 240. Let me just cover myself over. It pays to keep the worst of the dust off myself, and I'll just realign the camera slightly. There we go. The skin's actually quite smooth now. You know, the horrendous crunchy crusty surface, all the worst of the cracking and all the crunchiness is gone from the previous two cuts. That one took out the most of it, but of course you can't leave and finish the skin on that. These are just it's just the part of a handle off an old file that I've just trimmed it at an angle and used double-sided carpet tape to stick on abrasive paper, and that's the handle off an old paintbrush, as is this one. So it's a totally different colour, that paper. There is paper on the end there, and this is the third of what will be 4 cuts. I'm just trying to get the skin a lot smoother now. It's already soft. It's very, very soft. All the crunchy, dreadful, dead skin that couldn't be revived with conditioner or moisturiser, that's gone. And I've just got to get a respectably smooth surface before I dye these. And it's a tedious and slow process, but we're getting there now. And this is the third of 4 cuts. I'll make another one of these tools with 400 grit, and that 400 grit is perfectly smooth enough to be dyeing over and then moisturising and polishing. If you go any smoother, any finer than 400, it makes little difference to the actual polish and the shine of the skin, but the skin itself looks more synthetic. It loses some degree of natural looking texture. It can look a little bit overdone, a bit synthetic. So I generally, on calf skins, I generally stop on 400 grit. It does have a slight, feels a bit like nubuck. And the next cut won't look or feel that much different. And what you find is once it's been dyed, it will be all one even colour. I'll be dyeing these quite soon, unlikely to be today, but I will be dyeing them quite soon. But anyway, once it's dyed, it will have an all over colour, but it'll be very, very matte. And what really makes the difference is when you use the coloured leather moisturiser, the leather cream. That kind of, it plumps the surface just very slightly, and then you can use the skin is thirsty, so it will absorb a lot in, and it will plump the surface. Then you can use fine cloths and really furiously sort of buff the surface, and the friction will make the surface smooth enough to polish. You know, give a shiny surface. If I bring it in close, let the camera focus very slowly. I have to bring it slowly, otherwise the camera can't focus. You can see it's just got a slightly buck skin, nubuck. It just looks like nubuck and it feels like nubuck, and we want a shiny surface. But we'll get there. It's a very, part of it is the sanding effect, and then part of it is using a lot of friction with a cloth, really, really rubbing. But you need moisturiser on there, and that will. I'll show it to you soon. In the next few days, I'll definitely get to that stage. But we do have another set of cuts to do. This is a cut with the third abrasive, and then there'll be the fourth and final one. But then I'll take the very, very sharp paper, and I need to go around I don't want to affect the stitch line or the profile that the edging iron would have left. But it's a bit of a mess on the edge here. It's probably never been stripped back in 51, 52 years. So I'll take this edge back to its natural leather. There's a lot of old polish and crud and whatever, old, what's it called? Edge dressing. So I'll take that off. And I'll do that with all the 3 or 4 different grades as well. So we'll get the edges nice and smooth, and I'll dye the edges and I'll refinish the edges, but you can't be dyeing it and refinishing it over this kind of a mess. It is a mess. So that will come off as well. It's only skin, but I do need to be very, very careful not to touch that edge. That's got a very fine angle, which George Cleverley would have put on there. So if I'm clumsy, I'll round this off. It needs to be flat with a very, very tiny bevel, and there would have been tiny little little tiny ridges where the stitches. It's what are they called? A fudge wheel is. They use a little wheel that sort of puts little tiny, but they seem to have worn off. Actually, it's probably just the buffing and rubbing with the brush over the years. Let's knock those off. It's quite smooth, but it would have definitely had little tiny V's all the way along here from a fudge wheel. Yeah, they're gone, so I'm not too worried about losing those because they're already gone. But I do not want to lose that tiny little chamfer. But I'll continue for about an hour with this. I think that's, what did I say, 240 grit. And just make it a little bit smoother, and then I'll do exactly the same process again with the 400 grit. Then after a good bit of dry buffing with this is not buffing, it's just rubbing. There's a lot of dust. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. But you get like little tiny little fibres that are attached to the skin, and a clean brush will rub those away. Oh dear, the camera's probably not picking it up, but we're getting a huge amount of dust rising up. Very, very fine. That's better. It's nice and smooth. But there's still a long way to go with wherever the thing is, I'm sitting on it, with the third cut. I'll do the fourth cut, and then we'll come to the dyeing process. But we are getting very, very close. Quite excited to actually start wearing these shoes. They are spectacular.